equals 5. The absolute value of 4 minus f equals 5. So, what two things have an absolute value of 5? 5 and negative 5. So we've got 4 minus f equals 5. 4 minus f equals negative 5. All right. So 4 minus what makes 5? Negative 1. Good. Remember, if I do 4 minus negative 1, remember subtraction can change into adding the opposite. So if I change the subtraction to addition, then I got to change the negative to a positive as well. So it'd be like 4 plus 1. So good, it is negative 1. 4 minus what is negative 5?
9.
4 minus 9 is negative 5. Okay, division problem, then we'll get into some different types of problems. Example 5, 6 divided by m, the absolute value of 6 divided by m equals 2. The absolute value of 6 divided by m equals 2. So what two things have an absolute value of 2?
2 and negative 2.
2 and negative 2. So I do 6 divided by m equals 2. 6 divided by m equals negative 2. All right. So 6 divided by what is 2? 3. 6 divided by what is negative 2? Negative 3. Okay, example 6. The absolute value of 4 times j equals negative 8. The absolute value of 4 times j equals negative 8. So, what two things have an absolute value of negative 8? Think about what I just asked you. What two things have an absolute value of negative 8?
8, negative 8, 8,
8.
0, 1,
24.
4.
Can something be negative 8 jumps away from 0?
Yeah.
Yes.
No solution. Can't be negative 8 jumps away. There's very few times you're going to be allowed to have this negative on the outside. We'll talk about those in a minute. You should automatically see if this negative's out here, you should automatically suspect something. Okay. Negatives on the outside is not usually kosher when it comes to absolute value. All right, now example 7 is not inherently a difficult problem. What I do want you to realize, though, in this problem, when I have j squared, the absolute value of j squared equals 16, you can't ask yourself like we have in the last problem, okay? Because think about it. If I ask myself, well, what two things have an absolute value of 16, your first response would probably be 16 and negative 16.
Yeah.
But if I square a number, can I get a negative answer? No. If I square a number, it's going to come back to positive. Okay? You automatically know that 4 is an answer. That 4 times 4 is 16. But think about it. If I square negative 4 times negative 4, two negatives in multiplying make a positive. So it's not really a trick. All right? And you probably would have come up with the answers even if you would have screwed it up. All right? Ask yourself, what has an absolute value of negative 16, negative 16? Okay? But it's actually not the negative part, because there is no negative when it comes to a square. All right, so the absolute value of j squared plus 2 equals 6. The absolute value of j squared plus 2 equals 6. Now this one is a little bit different from the last one, which is why it's here. Now you can go back to asking yourself, well, what two things have an absolute value of 6? Those two things would be 6 and negative 6. So I've got j squared plus 2 equals 6. j squared plus 2 equals negative 6. So let's start with j squared plus 2 equals 6. It's an addition equation, so you know by now if it's an addition problem, we solve it by doing the opposite, which is to subtract. So we subtract 2, and I'll get j squared equals 4. Well, what numbers can I square to get 4?
2.
And
2.
2 and negative 2, right. So there's 2 answers. All right, now, if I try it on this one and I subtract 2, then I've got j squared equals negative 8. Okay, well, we just talked about that's not going to work. Okay, that's going to be problematic for us, so that's out. So there's still 2 answers, but there's only one equation we solved. All right, example 9, and then we play with the negatives, and then we're done. What, Victoria?
How do you know, like, subtract twos?
Opposite of adding.
Oh, okay.
All right, example 9 says the opposite of the absolute value of r is negative 3. The opposite of the absolute value of r is negative 3. Now, hopefully you were already a little bit suspicious because of this negative on the outside right here. Okay? I would hope. But think about the way I read it. The opposite of the absolute value of r is negative 3. Okay? All right, so if I put 3 in here, what's the absolute value of 3? 3. Then I said, what's the opposite? Because that's how I started the problem. So what's the opposite of 3?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. So that did work in this case. Okay. If I try it with negative 3, the absolute value of negative 3 is
3.
and the opposite of 3 is negative 3. So both those work in this case. But here, they no longer work. Because we know whatever's coming out of here now is positive, right? Right? I said the absolute value of 3 came out as 3. The absolute value of negative 3 came out as 3. So whatever's coming out is going to be positive. Right? When I take the opposite, it's going to force it to become a
Negative 3.
negative, but look at this number out here is a positive. So this one is another famed no solution.
No.
Most of your problems are going to be like the stuff you saw before 5.
Sweet.
There's going to be a lot fewer that are going to be like this stuff, although there's some squares in there because the squares were bad. All right, only a few you're really going to have to think rather hard about. All right, and by saying rather hard, I mean you actually have to think as opposed to just solving an equation.